Being a galactic inspector isn't exactly what holovids make it out to be. Trust me, I should know. I've spent the last 15 cycles doing this job, and not once have I uncovered a plot to destroy the galaxy or stopped an invasion of space pirates. Instead, I spend most of my time checking safety protocols and making sure research stations follow proper waste disposal procedures. That's what I thought this inspection would be. Just another routine check of Research Station Beta 7 on Terra Nova, the newest addition to our network of research outposts studying primitive worlds. Inspector Kora Vix, I announced to the station's AI as my ship docked. Authorization code 7749 Beta Prime. The docking clamps locked with a satisfying thunk. At least they maintained those properly. You'd be surprised how many stations let their basic systems deteriorate while spending fortunes on questionable research projects. Welcome to Research Station Beta 7, Inspector Vix the AI responded. Station Director Mal Dren has been notified of your arrival and will meet you in the main atrium. I gathered my inspection tablets and straightened my official uniform. The silver badges of the Galactic Inspection Corps gleamed under the station's lights as I made my way through the airlock. The atrium was impressive, I'll give them that. A massive dome of transparent durasteel showed off Terra Nova's twin moons hanging in the purple sky. Exotic plants from various worlds lined the walkways, creating an almost peaceful atmosphere. Inspector Vix's voice called out. What an unexpected pleasure. I turned to see Station Director Mal Dren hurrying toward me. He was a tall Centaurian, his blue-tinted skin almost matching the station's standard uniforms. 4 arms spread wide in what I assumed was meant to be a welcoming gesture, but something about his smile seemed off. Director Dren, I replied, keeping my tone professional. This is a scheduled annual inspection. There's nothing unexpected about it. Of course, he laughed, but it sounded forced. I simply meant it's always a pleasure to host a member of the Inspection Corps. Shall we begin with the standard tour? I activated my tablet. Actually, I'd like to start with the lower levels. I'm noting some unusual energy readings from sectors B7 through B12. Dren's smile flickered for just a moment. If I hadn't been trained to notice such things, I might have missed it. Oh, those sectors are currently undergoing maintenance. Nothing to worry about. Why don't we start with our Botanical Research Division? We've made fascinating breakthroughs in adapting Rigelian wheat to. Director, I cut him off. As per Galactic Regulation 459, Section 12, all areas of a research station must be accessible during inspection, maintenance or not. The energy readings I'm detecting don't match any standard maintenance procedures I'm familiar with. Well, you see Dren's lower arm started fidgeting with his uniform. The maintenance involves some sensitive equipment. We wouldn't want to risk any accidents. I pulled up another screen on my tablet. According to the station's original blueprints, sectors B7 through B12 were designated as storage areas. What kind of sensitive equipment requires power readings higher than your main reactor? That's classified information, Inspector. Even with your clearance, I'd need to contact Central Command for authorization. Now that was interesting. Research stations didn't have authority to classify information from galactic inspectors. We had universal clearance, specifically to prevent stations from hiding dangerous research behind bureaucratic barriers. Director Dren, I said, making sure my voice carried the full weight of my authority. Are you formally refusing an inspector access to part of your station? The atrium suddenly felt very quiet. Several researchers who had been pretending not to watch our conversation quickly found reasons to be elsewhere. Not refusing, Dren said carefully. Simply following security protocols. I tapped my tablet, sending an official request ping through the station's network. Then you won't mind if I contact Central Command myself? I'm sure they can clear this up quickly. Wait, Dren's voice cracked slightly. All 4 hands raised in a stopping gesture. Perhaps we could discuss this in my office. No, I replied firmly. We can discuss it on our way to the lower levels. After you, Director. As we walked toward the lifts, I noticed Dren sending quick glances at his personal communicator. Warning someone of our arrival, no doubt. In 15 cycles of inspections, I'd learned that guilty people always made the same mistakes. The lift ride down was silent and tense. I used the time to send a coded message to my ship, activating its emergency protocols. If anything happened to me, it would alert Central Command automatically. Inspector Dren said as the lift slowed, "I want you to understand that everything we've done here has been for the advancement of science. Sometimes progress requires unconventional methods." I'd heard that excuse before. It usually preceded the discovery of something horrible. Save the justifications, Director. Show me what you're hiding. The lift doors opened to a corridor that definitely wasn't used for storage. The walls were lined with sophisticated scanning equipment, and security drones hovered at regular intervals. This level of security wasn't approved for any research station, let alone one supposedly studying primitive worlds. "Last chance, Director," I said quietly. "What's behind those doors?" Before Dren could answer, a high-pitched scream echoed through the corridor. It sounded young, impossibly young, and definitely not like any species cleared for deep space research. I looked at Dren. His blue skin had turned almost white. "What have you done?" I shoved past Director Dren before he could stop me, my boots clicking against the polished floor as I ran toward the source of the scream. The security drones whirred to life, their red scanning beams sweeping across my uniform. "Override code 7749 Beta Prime," I shouted, hoping the station's AI would recognize my authority. The drones hesitated, their programming conflicting between my override and their base protocols. "Stop her!" Dren's voice echoed down the corridor. The sound of heavy boots told me station security was responding. But they were too late. The first set of doors slid open at my approach. Inside, I found banks of monitoring equipment, displays showing data I couldn't begin to comprehend. But it was the central display that made my blood run cold. Life signs, dozens of them, all registering as juvenile. Inspector Vix, a human female, emerged from behind a console, her hands raised to show she wasn't a threat. Her name tag read Dr. Hannah Blake. "Thank the stars you're finally here." Security forces burst into the room, weapons drawn. "Step away from the console," Inspector the lead guard ordered. "Stand down," I replied, not taking my eyes off the human scientist. "I have full authority here, and this facility is now under investigation." "They won't listen," Hannah said quickly. "Director Dren has them convinced this research is sanctioned by Central Command. But it's not. What they're doing to those children, it's monstrous." "Children?" I pulled up the life sign readings again. "These are human children." 17 of them, Hannah confirmed, her voice breaking. "Taken from various primitive colonies. The director claims they're studying human adaptability, but that's not even close to the truth." The security team looked uncertain now. Good. Guards who hesitated were guards who might listen to reason. "Lower your weapons," I ordered again. "Or would you prefer to explain to Central Command why you threatened a galactic inspector?" The weapons lowered slowly. Director Dren pushed his way into the room, all four arms gesturing frantically. "This is a misunderstanding. Dr. Blake is clearly disturbed. We're conducting approved research into what I interrupted. Show me your research authorization for experiments on sentient juveniles." "The humans aren't classified as fully sentient yet," Dren protested. "Their civilization hasn't even achieved basic spaceflight." Hannah's laugh was bitter. "That's what they want everyone to believe. Show her, Director. Show her what those primitive children can do." More screaming echoed through the walls, but this time it wasn't from fear or pain. It was rage, pure, unrestrained rage that made the very air feel heavy. The lights flickered. Equipment sparked. Every screen in the room began displaying the same message: let US out. What is this?" I demanded. Hannah's eyes were filled with tears. "The truth. Follow me." She led us through another set of doors into what could only be described as a nightmare. The room was circular, its walls lined with stasis pods. Each pod contained a small figure floating in suspension fluid. Human children, none of them looking older than 10 cycles. But it was their faces that haunted me. Even in stasis, Their expressions showed pain, fear, and something else. Something that made my instincts scream danger. Their telepathic, Hannah explained quietly. All of them. That's what caught the research team's attention. These children represent a tiny percentage of the human population born with incredible psychic abilities. That's impossible, Dren sputtered. Primitive species can't develop psionics before achieving spaceflight. It's a fundamental law of evolution. Laws? Hannah turned on him, her voice sharp. You want to talk about laws? How about the law against kidnapping children? Against performing experiments on sentient beings? Against... The room plunged into darkness. When the emergency lights flickered on, I saw that every stasis pod was now glowing with a pale blue light. They're waking up, Hannah whispered. All of them. At once. This has never happened before. I'd seen a lot in my 15 cycles as an inspector. Illegal weapons research, banned genetic modifications, even attempts to create artificial intelligence. But nothing prepared me for what happened next. The stasis fluid in every pod began to bubble, not from heat, but from pure psychic energy. The children's eyes snapped open simultaneously, glowing with the same blue light that surrounded their pods. You heard us, a chorus of young voices echoed in my mind. You took us from our families. You thought we were primitive, weak. Now you'll learn. Director Dren collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. The security team dropped their weapons, some of them crying out in pain. Only Hannah and I seemed unaffected. They won't hurt you, Hannah said quickly. They can sense you're here to help. But the others, she looked at the writhing forms of the research staff. The children have been gathering strength for months, sharing their abilities through their shared trauma. What you're seeing is just a fraction of what they can do. Through the station's windows, I could see ships appearing in the purple sky. Human ships, their designs unlike anything in our database. They moved with impossible grace, ignoring all known laws of physics. Did you really think the children's voices echoed again, that our parents wouldn't find us? That our species achieved spaceflight through ordinary means? More ships appeared, forming a blockade around the station. A new voice, adult and authoritative, boomed through every speaker system. This is Admiral Jack Parker of the Human Defense Fleet. Your station is now surrounded. Release our children immediately, or we will demonstrate why taking them was your last mistake. I looked at the floating children, their eyes still glowing with that otherworldly blue light, then at the impressive fleet that had appeared from nowhere. Finally, I turned to Director Dren, who was still shaking on the floor. Congratulations, Director, I said dryly. You wanted to study human capabilities? I'd say you're about to get a very thorough demonstration. The next few minutes were pure chaos. Station alarms blared as security protocols activated automatically. Through the observation windows, I could see more human ships materializing from what appeared to be tiers in space itself. We need to get to the main control room, Hannah said urgently. The stasis pods are running on a separate system. If the wrong person initiates emergency protocols. She didn't need to finish. I'd seen enough research stations to know how these things usually ended. Emergency protocols typically meant destroying evidence. Show me the way, I ordered. Looking at the security team still recovering on the floor, I added, anyone who tries to stop us will face charges of crimes against sentient beings. We ran through the corridors, following Hannah's lead. The children's voices continued to echo in our minds, but now they were speaking individually rather than in unison. They hurt Tommy last week. Sarah hasn't woken up in 3 days. They said our parents abandoned us. Make them stop. Please make them stop. Each voice felt like a knife in my chest. 15 cycles of maintaining professional distance crumbled in the face of their pain. Their Hannah pointed ahead. That's the main research lab. Dr. Nexus will be there. She's the one who designed the experiments. The doors were sealed, but that didn't matter anymore. The children's combined psychic power ripped them open like they were made of paper. Inside, we found a scene of frantic activity. Dr. Nexus, a tall Andromean with characteristic silver skin, stood at a central console. Her fingers flew over the controls while other researchers rushed to delete data and destroy samples. "Stop," I commanded, my voice carrying the full authority of the Galactic Inspection Corps. "This is now a crime scene. Step away from the consoles." "You don't understand," Dr. Nexus replied without looking up. "These children, their potential is beyond anything we've ever seen. The things they can do, the power they possess, it could revolutionize our understanding of psychic development." "They're children," Hannah spat. "Not lab experiments. They're the key to everything." Nexus's voice rose with fervor. "Do you know what we discovered? Their abilities don't just break our understanding of psychic development. They break our understanding of physics itself." The screens around us came to life, showing footage of the experiments. Children moving objects without touching them. Children reading thoughts across vast distances. Children opening portals in space. "That's how they achieved spaceflight," Nexus continued, her eyes wild with excitement. "Their ships don't use conventional drives. They use crews of psychics to fold space itself. We had to understand how. We had to. Had to torture children," I finished coldly. "Had to tear families apart." "You call it torture. I call it reaching for the stars." Nexus's hand moved toward a red button. "And I won't let you stop us now." Before she could press it, every piece of equipment in the room suddenly crumpled like it was made of thin foil. The children had heard enough. Through the crushed remains of the security doors, they floated in, all 17 of them. Their feet didn't touch the ground, and their eyes still glowed that ethereal blue. The oldest, a girl who couldn't have been more than 10 cycles, moved to the front. "My name is Maya Collins," she said, her voice somehow both young and ancient. "And you're going to learn what happens when you cage something you don't understand." The researchers tried to run. They didn't get far. Invisible forces held them in place while Maya approached Dr. Nexus. "You wanted to understand our powers." Maya's voice trembled with barely controlled rage. "Then let me show you." She reached out and touched Dr. Nexus's forehead. The Andromean's silver skin went ash gray as her eyes widened in terror. "No, no, please, too much, too vast." "That's what space feels like," Maya said quietly. "All of it. Every star, every planet, every particle of dust between them. We feel it all the time. That's why we developed these abilities. Not for war, not for power, but because our minds needed a way to process the infinite." She removed her hand, leaving Dr. Nexus shaking and babbling incoherently. "The experiments," I said, looking at the destroyed equipment. "What were they really trying to achieve?" Hannah answered, her voice heavy with disgust. "They thought they could replicate the children's abilities through artificial means, transfer their powers to other species. They didn't understand that human psychic abilities aren't just random mutations. They're who we are," Maya finished. "Our gift and our burden. Some of us are born able to touch the infinite. It's not something you can copy or steal. It's not something you can control." The station shuddered as the human ships outside began docking. Through the windows, I could see figures in advanced environmental suits cutting through airlocks. "Our parents are here," Maya said, a child's relief finally breaking through her otherworldly demeanor. "They followed our calls across the stars." I looked at the cowering researchers, the destroyed lab, and the children now slowly descending to the floor as their power display ended. Some of them swayed with exhaustion, the strain of their combined effort finally showing. Inspector Hannah touched my arm. "The human ships are requesting permission to board. What should I tell them?" I straightened my uniform, which suddenly felt inadequate for the magnitude of this moment. "Tell them their children are safe. Tell them the Galactic Inspection Corps is formally requesting their assistance in documenting crimes against sentient beings." And I looked at Maya, who was now being supported by 2 other children. "Tell them we have a lot to learn about what it means to be advanced. The next 12 hours were the longest of my career." The human fleet had surrounded Research Station Beta 7 with precision that would make our best admirals jealous. Their ships hung in space like silent guardians, their design still confounding our most sophisticated scanning equipment. Admiral Parker proved to be a tall, gray-haired human with eyes that had seen too much. He materialized directly into the station's main conference room, accompanied by what I later learned was called a strike team of human psychics. "Inspector Vix," he said, extending his hand in what I recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Thank you for protecting our children." "I only wish I'd discovered them sooner," I replied, completing the handshake. "Your arrival was impressive." A slight smile crossed his weathered face. "We've been tracking this facility for months. Once we confirmed our children were here, it was only a matter of time. We waited because we detected someone." He nodded toward Hannah. "Someone on the inside was protecting them, keeping them safe until help could arrive." Hannah blushed, looking down. "I tried to alert the inspection corps sooner, but all my messages were intercepted. When I heard Inspector Vix was coming." "You took a chance," I finished, "and it paid off." The conference room doors opened, admitting a stream of high-ranking officials from both sides. The Galactic Council had convened an emergency session and were attending via hologram, their enormous projections lending an air of gravity to the proceedings. "This is unprecedented," Council Leader Nax boomed. "A previously classified species, not only achieving spaceflight but demonstrating capabilities that violate our understanding of physics." "With respect," Council Leader Admiral Parker interrupted smoothly, "we were never hiding. We simply chose not to interact with civilizations that might misunderstand us. Recent events have proven that caution-wise." The children were brought in next, each accompanied by their parents. The reunion brought tears to even the most hardened council members' eyes. Parents clutched their children, whispering comfort in dozens of Earth languages, while tears flowed freely. Maya Collins, still showing remarkable composure for someone so young, stepped forward to address the council. "We want to go home," she said simply. "But first, we want to make sure this never happens to anyone else." The terms of the agreement were hammered out over the next few hours. The humans would no longer hide their true capabilities, but in return, the Galactic Council would implement unprecedented protections for developing species. No more research stations near primitive worlds. No more studying civilizations without their knowledge. Director Dren and his research team were taken into custody. Dr. Nexus still hadn't recovered from her glimpse into the infinite, but the human healers promised to help her regain her sanity eventually. The hardest part, Admiral Parker confided to me as we watched the children boarding their transport home, will be explaining to the galaxy that we're not gods or monsters. We're just humans. Some of us can touch the infinite, yes, but we still laugh, cry, love, and hurt, just like everyone else. "And the children?" I asked. "Will they be okay?" He smiled, watching as Maya helped a younger child up the boarding ramp. "Children are remarkably resilient. With time, support, and love, they'll heal. Some may even choose to become ambassadors when they're older, helping bridge the gap between our civilizations." The human ships departed as mysteriously as they had arrived, slipping through tiers in space that our scientists still couldn't explain. But they left behind more than just memories and questions. They left hope. The Galactic Council's emergency session lasted another 3 days. I testified about everything I'd seen, every regulation that had been broken, every ethical line that had been crossed. But more importantly, I testified about what I'd learned. "We called them primitive," I told the council. "We looked at their limited spaceflight, their quaint technology, and we assumed we knew everything about them. We were wrong. The humans didn't develop like we did because they didn't need to. Why build faster than light drives when you can fold space itself? Why develop artificial telepathy when natural psychics can link minds across galaxies?" I took a deep breath before delivering my final recommendation. The research station Beta 7 incident should serve as a warning, not of humanity's power, but of our own arrogance. We thought we were studying them. In reality, they were allowing us to learn about ourselves. The council chambers fell silent as my words sank in. Finally, Council Leader Nax spoke. "Your recommendation, Inspector Vix. Establish full diplomatic relations with Earth immediately. Offer reparations for the harm we've caused. And most importantly, approach them not as subjects to be studied, but as equals who might just have more to teach us than we ever imagined." As I left the council chambers, my personal communicator chimed. A message from Maya Collins. "Thank you for helping us, Inspector. Maybe someday, when you're ready, we can show you what space really looks like. It's beautiful when you're not afraid of it." I smiled, saving the message. Something told me this wouldn't be my last interaction with humanity. And for the first time in 15 cycles as an inspector, I was actually looking forward to what tomorrow might bring. 6 months after the Beta 7 incident, I stood in my office at Galactic Inspection Corps headquarters, watching ships pass through the newly established human trading port. Their vessels still drew crowds of amazed onlookers every time they folded space to arrive or depart. My desk displayed the latest updates to xenoresearch protocols. Every research station now required multiple independent inspectors. Any study involving sentient beings needed approval from both the Galactic Council and representatives of the species being studied. The changes went on, each one a direct response to what we'd learned from our mistakes. Hannah Blake had accepted a position as head of the new ethics division, ensuring that scientific curiosity never again overshadowed basic morality. She kept in touch, sending regular updates about the children's recovery. My communicator chimed with a new message. Maya Collins, now enrolled in a joint human galactic educational program, had apparently been telling stories about me. Inspector Vix, the message read. The Human Diplomatic Corps would like to offer you a position as chief liaison between our species. Maya Collins speaks highly of your integrity, and we believe you understand better than most the importance of approaching different cultures with respect, rather than assumptions. I smiled, already knowing my answer. The position would mean giving up my role as an inspector, but perhaps that was fitting. After all, I'd spent 15 cycles looking for violations of rules and regulations. Maybe it was time to help write new ones. Through my office window, I watched another human ship arrive, smoothly sliding through a tier in reality. A small crowd of children from various species gathered at the observation deck, pointing excitedly. Among them, I spotted several young humans, their eyes glowing that familiar blue as they shared their unique view of the universe with their new friends. We'd learned our lesson about underestimating primitive species. Now, as I prepared to accept my new role, I wondered what other assumptions we might need to challenge. The universe, it seemed, still had plenty of surprises left to show us, and this time we were ready to learn. End.